Make a closed session announcement, and then the City Council welcomes public comment on the item listed for closed session.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. This is City Attorney Jennifer Logue. There is one item on this evening's closed session agenda. Item 2.1 is a conference with labor negotiators pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representatives for unrepresented employees, city manager, city clerk, and city attorney is Vice Mayor Showalter. Because council will not be taking final action in closed session this evening, there will be no closed session report out at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on the closed session item listed on tonight's agenda? If so, either raise your hand in Zoom or submit a blue speaker card. I see 0 attendees on Zoom and 0 blue speaker cards. So we will now recess to the Plaza Conference Room for closed session and return to the council chambers at the close to continue the study session.
Testing. Yes.
Then, oh. Okay, good evening, everyone. I apologize for the length of that closed session, and welcome to the City Council special meeting to interview Rental Housing Committee applicants and Environmental Planning Commission applicants. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are now on item 3, and the city clerk will take roll by roll call.
Councilmember Abekoga?
Here.
Councilmember Kamei?
Here.
Councilmember Matichak?
Here.
Councilmember Ramirez?
Here.
Councilmember Ramos?
Here.
Vice Mayor Showalter?
Here.
Mayor Hicks?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And now we are on item 4.1, which is the Rental Housing Committee and Environmental Planning Commission applicant interviews. The purpose of the meeting this evening is for the council to interview applicants for 1 opening on the Rental Housing Committee and 2 openings on the Environmental Planning Commission, and make a recommendation for adoption at the November 7, 2023 City Council meeting. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on this item? If so, either raise your hand in Zoom or submit a blue speaker card. We have no blue speaker cards, and nobody is raising their hand on Zoom. We will now go to the selection process. Per that process outlined in Council Policy number K2, interviews will be conducted in a panel format. Each applicant will receive the same amount of time to answer each question, and the questions selected by the council will be asked in randomized round-robin order to the applicants for each body. The council may ask a limited number of clarifying questions in the event an applicant's answer was unclear or otherwise not understood. Clarifying questions should not be used to allow an applicant additional opportunity to expand on the original response. On March 7th of 2023, the council gathered the following information from RHC applicants in the denoted time limit for each category. And we have these questions. I'll read them briefly, and council members can say whether they'd like to suggest changes to the questions or propose a time allocation per each question that's different than the ones noted. So, 1 is for 1 minute. Tell us about yourself and what unique perspectives or abilities you'd bring to the RHC. 2 is 2 minutes. Tell us about the role of the RHC and the role of its legal counsel in the RHC decision-making process. And 3 is 2 minutes. What do you think will be the most important issues in the next year, and how would you go about thinking them through and addressing them? Are there any council members who want to make changes to the questions or the amount of time allocated for them? Councilmember Matichak.
Thank you. I don't necessarily want to change any of these, but if we could just add as part of question 2, and I don't think you need to add any more time for it, is have you read the CSFRA?
Okay. I'm going to take a straw poll on that. Who, raise your hand if you would like, if you consent to adding, have you read the CSFRA? Okay, we'll add it. Any other additions, amendments, subtractions? Yes. Okay. I see no more amendments from council members. Last call. In that case, the council will now interview the applicants for the RHC. RHC applicants can come down to the front table, and you'll notice, if you haven't already noticed, that you have a place designated for you to sit. And you're good, but you're behind your names. So, thank you. Sorry you had to wait so long. Yes, one person, Amanda Garley, is joining us online. Do you have that set up?
Yeah, she's been promoted.
Okay, great. So on November 28th, this is the EPC. Okay, so I will now ask the questions. There's a randomized order, and which I have in front of me, and I will ask you each these questions in randomized order. So first is question number 1 for 1 minute. Tell us about yourself and what unique perspectives or abilities you would bring to the Rental Housing Committee. And the first person to answer the question will be Lee Zhang.
Hello. Okay.
Now it's
My name is Li Zhang. I would also first I would like you to know that I've taken some advices and I'm going to drop off my interview for EPC. I was asked many times why would I be applying for so many committees. I think it was my impression that I wanted to serve the community. That's number 1 priority for me. I've been serving for the school district as well as Boy Scout for the past 20 years, and my son's getting older. I really want to be involved with the larger community. That's what I want to contribute, and I want to bring a voice of first-generation immigrants, community's voice here. It's not easy for me to be here. And I've gathered a lot of courage. English is not my first language. And I really appreciate the opportunity with this democratic society that my voice and my community's voice can be heard. This is what I want to bring to this committee.
Thank you very much. And let's see, where the timers are. Oh, right in front of me where I can't see it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I know when I'm a public speaker, I can never find where they are, so I wanted to make sure you could see them. Okay, so again, the question is, tell us about yourself and what unique perspectives or abilities you'd bring to the RHC for 1 minute, and the next person is Alexander Brown.
Okay. I think it takes a second to start up. Hi, Alex Brown. I've been going to the RHC since it started. I'm very active in the community. I am connected to a lot of local groups, and I deeply value the purpose of the CSFRA, the MHRSO, housing staff of trying to help people and keep them in their homes. My perspective is seeing the broad view of what the city is doing across different dimensions to try to protect the community. I think that's something that I would say is unique, because I know I work with so many people who are also involved consistently across different things, but that is what I would want to continue doing on the RHC, is bringing that perspective, helping to administer the law and do what I can. If I don't get appointed to the full seat, I'll continue to do it as alternate. Happy to help.
Thank you. So again, tell us about yourself and what unique perspectives or abilities you'd bring to the RHC. For 1 minute, it's Mark Bulch. Mark, am I pronouncing your last name right?
That's right, thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yes, hi, I'm Mark. Nice to see you all again. I think what I bring uniquely to the table for the Rental Housing Committee is that I have more than 11 years of experience in directly managing small rental properties that my wife and I own. And so I have a direct relationship with our residents. I do the full 360-degree relationship and operation of those properties. First of all, I believe that the CSFRA is settled law, and I would look forward to fairly administering it for the community, for residents, for property owners. I have had a chance, contrary to what my application says, very recently, thanks to a tip from Councilmember Ramos, I have had a chance to see the operation of the committee, thanks to the YouTube recordings, which is excellent. And my perspective is that we need to make sure that we have sustainable housing for the long term so that residents, property owners, and the community are able to benefit from the health and stability Thank you.
Thank you. So the same question, this time for Edith Gomez-Marin. Am I saying that right?
Marin.
Marin, okay. And would you like me to read the question again? Or
No, that's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I first learned about this opening through the Spanish Civic Leadership Academy that I'm a part of currently. I'm a lifelong resident of Mountain View, and I not only grew up here, but I also attended the local schools, which gives me a deep connection to our community. I have grown up with a family that rented. I am also now a renter, so I understand the importance of stable and fair housing. I have worked at a local law firm here in Mountain View, and I now serve as an outreach and education coordinator at the Day Worker Center of Mountain View. So it gives, I have developed some communication analytical skills. I'm fluent in Spanish, which gives me an opportunity to engage with a broader range of residents. And I believe that my local roots, commitment, curiosity, and diverse experience makes me well suited for the position.
Thank you. So next we'll move on to the second question. Oh, Amanda, I'm sorry. Yes. So can you connect Amanda? And Amanda, would you like to hear the question over again?
No, I think I am good. Are you able to hear me okay?
We are.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if I'm not there in person. I'm not feeling too well. And thank you for your time. My name is Amanda Garley, and I have been renting in Mountain View for just about 10 years coming December. I also have roots here from when I was a young girl, about 12 years old. My mom used to live in Mountain View, so I have all my first jobs were in Mountain View and all that. And I have some background with admin and coordinator experience. I worked at Stanford University for over 5 years. I recently worked for Google. And I oversaw a budget when I was working at Stanford. So that's something that I could foresee being useful in this role. I have been educating myself about the program, about the RHC and the CSFRA. As a person, I like to see both sides of situations. So I'm a very impartial person. I think that could be useful on the panel. And I think that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now we go on to the second question, which is for 2 minutes. Tell us about the role of the Rental Housing Committee and the role of its legal counsel in the RHC decision-making process. And also, have you read the CSFRA? So we start this time with Alexander Brown.
Oh, have I read the CSR? Yes, I've read it several times and reference it frequently. I've also read the regulations for the CSFRA and the MHRSO. So RHC is there because it is text. Text is ambiguous, and it needs a person to actually work through and exercise the rights. So RHC is there to implement and make functional what the voters passed, and also what the council passed. That's their job. That's what they're there for. Their council is there to help them to understand what the legal background implications of the decisions, the regulations, what options are on the table, what is defensible, what makes sense in terms of the context and perspective, and also just to answer questions to be able to figure out how to best do the law to make it work for the people. What they've been doing for years, what they're going to continue to do. It's also okay. The other part of it is to adjudicate hearings. So we've had several hearings recently. The number has been picking up for petitions that are being appealed, and that is also a really valuable thing that the RHC can do, which is to serve as an extra step to make sure that if you don't think that your petition was fairly heard, bring it to bring your defense, bring it to a group of people who have experience, who have read the law, who understand what the implications are, and can say, was the evidence presented, understood, and was the judgment fair? It's good to have a group of people to do that because, humans with perspective. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next to review the question, it's tell us about the role of the RHC and the role of its legal counsel in the RHC decision-making process, and have you read the CSFRA? Amanda Garley.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you great.
Perfect, thank you. So the role of the RHC is to make sure that we are, that everybody is abiding by the laws, especially the CSFRA, which I know will be mentioned quite a lot, and makes sure that they hear and decide appeals. I understand that there is a budget that is overseen, and there's also an annual fee, is my understanding, for apartment landlords. So that's something that I believe will need to be enforced. And then as well as that, sorry, what was the second part of the question, if you don't mind?
Have you read the CSFRA?
Oh, I think the legal counsel was the second portion.
Oh, the second part of the long question is the role of the RHC, and also the second part would be the role of its legal counsel.
Thank you so much. So I believe the legal counsel offers advice on legal matters and reviewing options over complex issues related to rental housing, and just making sure that we're abiding by the law in our decision-making process, as well as the landlords and tenants. And the CSFRA, I will be completely honest, I have combed through it. I have a general understanding of it, and I do plan to dive deeper into it as time goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, Lee Zhang, would you like me to repeat the question because it's a long one?
I think I got it.
You have.
Okay. I believe the Rental Housing Committee is established by the voter-approved Community Stabilization and Fair Rent Act and consists of 5 members and 1 alternate. Hello? There you go. It is tasked with implementing and administrating the CSFRA and the Mobile Home Rent Stabilization Ordinance. The RHC may hold hearings and make decisions on various matters related to rental housing, such as rent increase, adjustments, eviction, and landlord and tenant disputes. RHC have hearing officers hear the cases, appeal the Rental Housing Committee, working closely with the staff and hearing office, one case at a time. They are paid by the rental housing funds. The Rental Housing Committee manages spending of the fund. City of, I think I don't want to repeat myself on this. I do remember I read somewhere it says the expense, they pay the fund pays the expense for the IT system, use the payroll system from the city as well. So there basically has to be in and out, it's balanced finance, a self-supporting system. To aid in the decision-making process, the RHC employs the legal counsel to provide legal advices and guidance. They are advising on policies, legal counsel. Overall, the legal counsel's role is to ensure that the RHC operates within its legal authority and that its decisions are based on sound legal principles. By doing so, the legal counsel helps to ensure that the RHC's decisions are fair just and in the best interests of both landlord and tenants.
Thank you.
I did read through the CSFRA documents. I have to say it's not so easy for the first timer, but I did have a Q&A session with. Oh, sorry.
We're out of time, so, but I think we get the gist. Thank you. So next, Mark Balch, and would you like the question read, or do you have it?
There's a delay, yeah, okay. Yes, I have read the CSFRA. The role of the legal counsel is to provide clarity and a legal opinion on many technicalities of law. They can be state law, they can be the CSFRA itself. There are many legal details that govern leases, that govern notice to tenants, and it's really important to follow them. And this actually segues into what is the role of the Rental Housing Committee. One of the roles, as has been talked about, is to deal with appeals. And one of the things that we hear in some of those appeals is when one side or another doesn't follow some of those technicalities and doesn't give proper notice or doesn't communicate in the right way. So the staff and the legal opinions are very important to be able to fully understand that and to be resources for the Rental Housing Committee members. The Rental Housing Committee members, beyond dealing with petitions or appeals, need to decide some matters of implementation because the CSFRA did not spell everything out. For example, RUBS, as everyone has been talking about, has been a really big issue, right? And that was not fully addressed in the text. And so it required staff, it required hearings to be able to make some of those decisions. I'm sure there will be other things like that that come up because rental housing is a very complex area. There are issues of determining fair rate of return when property owners come with petitions, if they want to do long-term capital improvements, or if they do want to install sub-meters, that was another topic, or if they want to do seismic retrofitting. There are many areas of judgment that the RHC members are having to deal with to make sure that the law can be fairly administered because there are so many complexities. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and last we have Edith Gomez-Marin. Do you have the question already?
No, could you repeat it again, please?
Sure. So for 2 minutes, tell us about the role of the RHC and the role of its legal counsel in the RHC decision-making process. Also, have you read the CSFRA?
Well, the main role of the RHC is to make sure that the laws are being implemented, also taking the legal counsels, them analyzing, making sure that the laws are being followed, and then just having people being able to kind of explain it in more in easier terms. I was able to join one of the meetings, and I had never followed what the RHC before, but because of having the committee there, I was able to understand more what the appeals were about. And then I've briefly read the CSFRA. I understand that the main points are for stable rent for property tenants, to protect property tenants from evictions, and to make sure that landlords receive a fair return on their property.
Okay, and have you read the CSFRA? Did you already say that? Okay. Yeah. I'm glad I asked twice because I forgot the answer. Okay, so now we're going on to question number 3 for 2 minutes. What do you think will be the most important issues over the next year? And how would you go about thinking them through and addressing them? We will start with Mark Balch.
All right, there we go. As I've discussed with many of you, I think that an issue that is going to increasingly come to the foreground is going to be the maintenance and sustainability of our 70-year-old housing stock. And so I think that increasingly we're going to see questions come up around how to make costly investments to maintain safe properties that are healthy to live in, that will last for years to come, and balancing the costs between the community, the property owners, the residents. I believe that there are three really important constituents in that relationship. It is those three parties, the community, the owner of the property, and the residents, and there has to be a way to make sure that Mountain View is able to protect all of those properties so that they'll be around for years to come. And it involves a lot of really challenging balances because we're talking about long-term investments. And so I think that that's going to be an issue. Certainly as the RUBS policy is settling in the process of it being settled, it'll probably bring up things like submetering costs, and when people do submetering, they may be upgrading their entire plumbing system. So yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of long-term capital improvement type of questions that will invariably come up because, again, whether you own a car or your house or you rent your house to someone else, there's always those long-term issues that you're facing, sometimes by surprise when something breaks, hopefully planned and done in a way which is going to be a good outcome for everyone involved.
Thank you. So next we have Amanda Garley. And Amanda, would you like the question again?
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, so for 2 minutes, what do you think will be the most important issues in the next year? And how would you go about thinking them through and addressing them?
Some challenges could involve issues with rent control, disputes between tenants and landlords, potentially even new housing issues. I believe I would rely on data. I would gain any clarity I might need from the staff. I would make sure that I engage with the community for any input, maybe even my fellow committee members. And I would also ensure that I'm up to date with any policy changes, if any arise. My main focus would just be to make sure that there is fairness for both tenants and landlords, and to make sure that we're following the laws and to find fair solutions.
And is there more?
That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, Lee Zhang, and the question, if you want it again, is what do you think will be the most important issues in the next year, and how would you go about thinking them through and addressing them?
I think the number one issue, hello? The number one issue, I think, will be the removing of the RUBS, and that, once going through that, work through that with the landlord and tenants could be very time-consuming. Just the magnitude of the units will need to deal with, and adding additional staff and the cost associated with that that's one of my concerns. Just the downstream regulation to actually make it really work and not just make a devastating situation for either the landlord or the tenants at this point. And the second issue I can see coming up is the master lease issue. And I'm just wondering, I would think I would take the position that the master lease CSFRA rule should be passing through. I'm hoping to see that going through with master lease. Third is that's close to my expertise are the EV electrification for the complex, and the complexity of making it work through the capital improvement process. I can definitely leverage my knowledge on available incentives of electrification to ensure that the CSFRA regulation can be further clarified for both renter and property owner to create a win-win situation.
Thank you. So next we have Alexander Brown. Do you want the question again? Okay.
Just for fun, yes.
Okay. So what do you think will be the most important issues in the next year, and how would you go about thinking through them and addressing them?
Okay, so I'll see if I can keep this on track. Okay, so RUBS is going to take about 18 months to actually be resolved with all of the, because it's going to be phased in over time. That's going to be a process. We're going to have a lot of petitions, and I think that a big thing is going to be the petition process and the volume of petitions as they come in, trying to find ways to optimize so that people aren't spending a lot of time on paperwork and administrative things that otherwise could just be resolved. Part of that is going to be electrification, seismic retrofitting, other kind of improvements to properties that we want to last long term. We want these to be something that people can continue to live in. And part of that is going to be working with the city. You were all at the anti-displacement thing. We need to try to keep our housing stock that is currently here up to date and livable. Part of that is working with the RHC, working through capital improvement petition process, and finding ways to make sure that it is feasible to be able to keep people housed in their housing so we don't have to just demolish buildings and then build, ideally, more units. That'd be nice. Nicer units. Until then, let's keep the embodied carbon in the places where the people are, keep people in their homes, but also make sure that those homes are not wasting water, not using gas at all if they can help it, that they're safe in the event of a disaster. Those are things that we, as the RHC and the city, can partner on to work with the property owners to make sure that everything works long term. And I think that is something that is a rich opportunity to keep working on. I'm excited to do it.
Thank you. So next, Edith Gomez-Marin. And Edith, I'll just read you the question. What do you think will be the most important issues in the next year? And how would you go about thinking them through and addressing them?
I think, like everyone else has mentioned, probably the RUBS issue. I think it's already bringing up environmental questions about tenants, how much water they're using. And I think would be time to consider maybe upgrading some of the like plumbing and things that are in the apartments or houses, rental homes, and what that cost would be for both the tenants and the landlords, and trying to find a fair solution to that. I think another issue is the continued rising costs of renting. What I've noticed is a lot of rentals are pushing people out of the rental units so then they can remodel them and raise the rent or people that have been living at the apartments for a long time and raising the rent to be able to rent it to hire somebody else coming in. And I think also the newer buildings that are being built, even though there is a percentage that is set aside for it to be below market rate, I think it still doesn't solve the solution that there's not enough, or there's too many people for homes, and just everybody's getting pushed out and having to move out of Mountain View. So I think that's a pretty big issue, making sure that people can stay here in Mountain View.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So the interviews have concluded here. So you're able to stick around and listen, or go home and watch us virtually, or not watch and just hear from us some other day. We'll next go into the interviews for the Environmental Planning Commission, and then we'll talk about everything and take votes after that. I guess so. Hello, welcome. Thank you for your patience. So the council will now interview the applicants for the Environmental Planning Environmental Planning Commission. Paul Donahue, Alejandro Nunez, and Celia Paymer. On November 28th of 2022, the council posed the following questions to EPC applicants in the denoted time limit for each category, and council members can now suggest any changes to these questions. While you're looking them over, I'll just briefly read them over. The first one is for 1 minute, what have you personally done to make a contribution to the EPC? Or, if you're not currently serving, what would you bring to the EPC that's unique? Number 2, for 2 minutes, what are your thoughts on the city's existing plans, like the general plan and precise plans? And number 3, for 2 minutes, how would you balance private property rights and community benefits? And how would you consider public comments from residents? So, are there any council members who want to amend any of those questions? Councilmember Matichak.
Like I always do this, but I guess on the last question, I'm not sure we're balancing private property rights with community benefits. So that question seems a little bit odd to me. I mean, sometimes we might be, but more often than not, we're just requiring community benefits. So I guess, not quite sure how to change that one. So I was thinking maybe of a substitute question, which is, what are your thoughts on the gatekeeper process? How do you think it should be changed, and how would you change it?
So I'll just say as a comment on that, I'm not one to tinker with questions a lot, but I think that question is talking about private property rights versus benefits of the development to the community. I have always found this question confusing because there's a separate thing. There's a monetary allocation called community benefits, and you could confuse those two. But I think it's worth asking a question about benefits to residents of developments. But maybe this is not the best way to ask that question. Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the intent of the proposed question. I would reframe it as, how would you evaluate proposals to amend the general plan or to rezone a property, right? And that could include a discussion about expectations, for instance.
I like that. Thanks.
Say it one more time.
So something along the lines of how would you evaluate proposals that would amend the general plan or rezone a given property?
Okay. Vice Mayor.
Well, I think that the question that Councilmember Ramirez brought up is not a bad one at all. But I also have never liked this question, and I honestly think they asked it to me in 1992 when I applied. So I think it's maybe time we axed it. But I think that what the Planning Commission does is land use. That's what this is. This is the body that does land use in our community, and land use is very important. So how about something along the lines of, how does good land use improve our city? And what is your view of good land use? In other words, that's really what this commission works on, is land use.
Okay, so, we have Councilmember Kamei. Wait, can I get this? I'm a very slow writer. How does good land use improve
our city?
Our city, and?
What is your view of good land use? Or what is good land use?
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Kamei.
Great, thank you. I don't have tinkering with the third question. I like the ideas that have been raised by colleagues. For question 2, I was hoping, we are looking at some upcoming precise plans or, currently in review of some, and I'd love to find a way to add that in for number 2. What are your thoughts on the city's existing plans, like the general plan, precise plans, and precise plan amendments? Or I don't know how to add it in, but.
Well, do you want to add in the particular,
we're
Moffett and downtown?
Right, well, yes, we might look at others, but yes.
Moffett, downtown, and any others you want to comment
Yeah.
on? Any others you think you want to put on the table?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so, okay. Okay, I have so what I have now is the first question on what you've done personally or would do personally remains the same. The second adds some more precision. And the third was changed to how does good land use improve our city and what is good land use? I actually think that's more clear. But there was also, how would you evaluate proposals to amend the general plan? Should I add that into question 2 that talks about the general plan? Does that work for everyone? Or would you? So how would you solve that problem? Would you like it as a 4th question? Would you?
I thought we were replacing question
3 with that. The vice mayor had a different way of replacing the 3rd question.
Yeah, you could combine them. Or either one is fine. I just think that. I think there's a general consensus we don't like the 3rd question.
Okay. You don't know why? People have liked it in the past. That's why it's still on there. Okay, I'm going to add a 4th question, but I'm going to change the questions to 1.5 minutes instead of 2 minutes because everybody fine with that?
Sure.
Okay. We're ready. So we are now prepared for the interviews. I'll bring the matter back to council. Okay. So we're now ready for the interviews. Yes. So we will again do them round robin. The first question for 1 minute. What have you personally done to make a contribution to the EPC? Or if you're not currently serving, what would you bring to the EPC that is unique? And the first person to answer will be Paul Donahue.
Hello. Yeah, okay. Well, good evening. I have served on various city commissions and committees and also at the county level, so I have just about 30 years of combined experience at both of those levels, having 10 years of land use experience on the Santa Clara County Airport Land Use Commission, been on the Parks and Recreation Commission at the local level, and downtown committee, library board, a lot of things. So I think the thing that I bring the most is experience. I have land use experience. I have experience with the community, experience with gathering public input, wading through some pretty technical staff reports at the Airport Land Use Commission. So the thing I bring is experience. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So now, Alejandro Nunez. What have you personally done to make a contribution to the EPC?
Can I just confirm this is on? Yeah, okay, cool. I'll talk fast just because there's a minute. Yeah, so in terms of my contributions to EPC, aside from bringing, even before being appointed bring that closeness in terms of, being in, so to say, the trenches with the people who are being most impacted by our land use policies and decisions, and seeing how it affects their own, human health and quality. I am also glad to say I have been able to bring a diligent level of preparation to the commission. I bring definitely a generational perspective and diversity. I bring a diversity of experience from the low-income Hispanic community, and I synthesize that while I'm on the commission to try and engage my colleagues around issues that maybe weren't present in their thinking, not for lack of trying, but more along the lines of just an experiential consideration, and move discussion that way.
Thank you. So, Celia Paymer.
Yes.
What have you personally done, or if you're not currently serving, what would you bring to the EPC that's unique?
Thank you. I am not currently on the EPC, so my perspective would be coming as a bit of a newcomer. I haven't been on a committee yet, but I have attended many committee meetings. Actually, someone at this table said at an EPC meeting he doesn't know of anyone who attends quite as many as me. So I've been to EPC meetings, PRC, BPAC, ad hoc committee meetings, city council meetings, given comments at many of them with a green perspective, and so that would be kind of be the perspective I'd be bringing. I think uniquely, I've attended many DRC meetings as a result since 2020, so I've seen a lot of the projects that are coming forward and seen the process they've gone through and understand why they may have made decisions they have made. So I bring that perspective. I'm also a cyclist, so my primary form of transportation is cycling, and so I think, for instance, there's not enough bike parking. So things like that, a perspective that might be unique.
Thank you. So the second question is, for 2 minutes, what are your thoughts on the city's existing plans, like the general plan and precise plans, in particular, the Moffett and downtown precise plans, which are coming on our agenda, and any others you might think we should pay particular attention to? Again, for 2 minutes, and starting with Celia Paymer.
So I have reviewed both of those over the past few years as going to DRC to understand what they've been talking about, and also with things like sorry, I can't remember the address now, but the project that's on Moffett there, basically by Cypress Way and Center Street, and understanding how the plans, they sort of ask for a higher density, but also restrict higher density. And so there's some contradictions in there that need to be kind of clarified, because I do believe that more housing is good for everyone. It is good for the environment, it's good for our community. And so clarifying a lot of those things and clarifying our priorities, I think will help development happen smoother, fewer gatekeeping processes, hopefully. If we can clarify those, it'll help a lot. For instance, one thing that really threw me off was the Castro Street development by Sobrato, that it seems like it should be a residential area. It's next to the library and the park, but currently it's slated as purely office space. And so just kind of thinking about that, is that still what we want? If it is what we want, we're clear with that. If that isn't what we want, how do we leave space for spaces that are very walkable, bikeable, near a lot of our community services, being a place where people want to live and people are allowed to live and not in office spaces. So there's a balance to all these things, and making just very clear guidelines so that development can happen smoothly and quickly for all those benefits that we'll get from it.
Thank you. So next we have Paul Donahue. And again, the question for 2 minutes is, what are your thoughts on the city's existing plans, like the general plan and precise plans, particularly Moffett and the downtown?
Well, the city has 25 different precise plans, so it's hard to go over all of them. I think some of them are quite small. They vary in the level of precision that they cover. But anyway, I think that the yeah, Moffett Boulevard is certainly has unrealized potential, I would say. I think it's definitely in need of a precise plan to guide the city as that area gets developed, to be, as all areas should be, a complete neighborhood with housing and the services that people need. And on the other side of the tracks, downtown, I mentioned I was on the downtown committee before. I think that conditions have changed more recently. You know, for instance, the pedestrian mall. And one concern I have about downtown is ground floor offices, which I don't think should be allowed, basically. I think the ground floor should be restaurants, retail, that kind of thing, customer-facing things that people can enter. I don't know, El Camino precise plan, it's transit-oriented. Once Caltrans finally starts repaving it, we'll get some bike lanes and things like that to help with the transportation aspects and the walkability with some new crosswalks. San Antonio, I think that there's that used to be just a sea of parking lots with these 60s era retail big box things, and so that's been improved. It's not perfect, but better than it was.
Thank you. Now, Alex Nunez, what are your thoughts on the city's existing plans, like the general plan and precise plans, in particular Moffett and the downtown?
Yep, starting, I'll wait for the time. Okay. Starting specifically with the Moffett and downtown precise plan, at the benefit of not going first, I also fully agree that the level of office space that we're currently allowing, the amount of office space that we currently allow for definitely, in my personal opinion, at the very minimum, needs a review. Somewhere closer to the middle definitely needs to be reduced, especially in the downtown, where I think having a lot more pedestrian residential traffic would be very beneficial from an economic perspective as well. So at least increasing that in terms of allowance. From the Moffett precise plan perspective, one of the nice things about the downtown, and I can't take credit for this idea, my current chair, introduced me to the term porosity, and it made me realize, she made me realize that one of the things that makes downtown really good is that it more or less actually adheres to a grid system. And when I look at the Moffett, the other side of Central, that is a lot less grid-like. And so to the extent that there is some way to carry that porosity over to the Moffett precise plan, could really introduce some nice interconnectedness between those two. With regards to the general plan broadly, I've said this before, in terms of like the 2030 general plan, I think modifications getting closer to 2030 are definitely warranted. There are some inconsistencies that I think have been introduced as state law has kind of changed, but also even through some of our own plans, like the R3 update might introduce some questions around, how does that implicate intensities in the R2 or R4? So that's very important as, we're looking at ways of introducing new housing stock into the city to correct those.
Okay, thank you. So now we move on to question number 3 for a minute and a half. Maybe I made it too long. Don't feel bad if you only go a minute. How does good land use improve our city, and what is good land use? We will start with Alejandro Nunez.
Good land use improves our city by extending the degree to which the quality of life, and I mean that like actually literally the quality of like being a human in the city for our residents is maximized for as long as possible into the future, such that it can withstand changes. Obviously, that requires a lot of foresight, and that's why there's 6 other colleagues that we serve with, so that report our ideas back to a council so that our collective wisdom can try and plan a city for the future. In terms of what those impacts are, again, my orienting kind of North Star, to be a little bit cheesy, is human quality. What is the floor of what the worst human experience in our city is, and how can we enable our planning to lift that floor to where it's a pretty good life. People should be able to walk to places they need to get to. People should be able to have housing that doesn't drain away more than 30-40% of their income. And as a collective city apparatus that is in charge of planning those land use policies, then we need to be having that impact on our residents through our land use decisions, is my opinion.
Thank you very much. So next we'll have Paul Donahue. Again, how does good land use improve our city, and what is good land use, for a minute and a half?
I agree with some of the things that were said previously. Good land use is about improving the lives of the people of Mountain View, both the people who currently live here, and as we develop new housing and new people move in, to improving their lives. Because land use is theoretically about land and buildings and things like that, but it's really about people, right? We need to improve the lives of the people through the decisions that we make about how the land is used to serve the people. That's all I got.
Okay, I told you could go only a minute if you wanted, or less. Okay, Celia Paymer, how does good land use improve our city, and what is good land use?
So again, agree with good land use improves lives for our citizens, the people who live here, the people who visit here. If we have good land use, people want to come and join us in being part of this community, whether living permanently or coming to visit Castro and supporting our businesses. And I think good land use means it's a space where we've made very conscious decisions about how we want to use our spaces. For instance, I think I've talked with some people about what percentage of our public spaces are for cars. Is that a choice that we made on purpose? Is that one we sort of fell into? Is that something we want to think about? When we're asking developers, and I was just looking through some of the precise plans, there's parking minimums and there's open space minimums, and sometimes the parking minimums are larger than the spaces we ask for to have green spaces for the residents. And I was just talking with Alex about, we don't actually, our parking requirements for bikes are a percentage of the car parking. So as we reduce our car parking, we're reducing bike parking. And so these thoughts, are we making decisions about them, or are they just happening? And so being very thoughtful in how we improve our choices for our residents, and making them predictable as well. For instance, for those open spaces in the biodiversity master plan that's coming, could we make plans that developers could use, or make guidelines for developers so that they could more easily follow our biodiversity master plans? Yep.
Thank you. So our last question is, for a minute and a half, how would you evaluate proposals to amend the general plan, which also refers to the gatekeeper? And so for this one, we'll start with Paul Donahue.
I think that I would, whenever I consider any item that comes before me on anybody, I think the important things are to get as much information as possible about the topic. Obviously, there's staff reports, there's public comment, which I think is of critical importance because, as I mentioned before, it's about people, right? So we need to make decisions that represent the people of Mountain View. And one thing that I like is, I don't know if it's still true, but it used to be that in the city budget, the org chart for the city has everybody reporting to the city manager, city attorneys, city clerk, and then to the city council. But then the council reports to the people. And I think that is something that I always keep in mind. And so I read the staff report thoroughly. I ask probing questions. And then at the end of the day, I have to come to a decision. And I think it's important that when processing the information to make people feel heard, as people give the public comment, it's important to actually listen to them and not be fussing with your papers while they're talking, but to actually listen and make them feel heard and respected.
Thank you. So next, Celia Paymer, how would you evaluate proposals to amend the general plan?
For one thing, as Paul mentioned earlier, some of the precise plans go back to 40 years ago, and the general plan sometimes agrees with some of those, sometimes disagrees with some of those. So I think between the general plan and the precise plans, I can see why, sometimes a gatekeeper project would be necessary, even when it's in line with our current city goals and the city council goals as stated. So I think sometimes projects come up that are really exciting and they have a lot of opportunity, because one of the nice things about gatekeepers, you can give some more feedback. You don't just have to be like, oh yeah, that's fine. You can say like, hey, I know you want to cut down those 3 redwoods, but it's a gatekeeper. Let's try and keep those. And so what could we do to work around those? So I think they're a nice opportunity for conversation to make developments that are more progressive, that are looking forward to how this and align with the city council's stated goals. And at the same time, there has to be a balance. We can't keep changing things over and over and over again or nothing happens. So how do we balance this progressive movement of making change for the future without just stagnating a project? And so having those conversations, bringing in stakeholders early, hopefully in the process, so that it's something we're all really excited for, to be that exception. I see them as opportunity, but we have to balance that with the cost of the time they take.
Thank you. Now, Alex Nunez, how would you evaluate proposals to amend the general plan?
Yeah, so I guess one of the, if I would have been answering this question before COVID, and yeah, no, for real, right? Like just looking into account at some of the significant ways that the expectation of life and work has shifted, and how that's going to be impacting, the future of our region, and then a little bit lower, at the city. Do we need as much office space? Do we need, what kind of residential do we need? Does it need to be more dense, et cetera? Just trying to grapple with that, I think, is a fair, at least preliminary step to take. In terms of thinking about the gatekeeper process, it's unfortunate because I like the idea of the city retaining more control over what happens on its land. The problem is, yeah, to the point of, projects can die death by 1,000 changes. That can be very problematic. So, I do think that reducing some amount of allowable meetings within a local context, putting some policies forward for ourselves, independent of whatever the state does, trying to expedite and make sure that there's a finite period of time to that process, would be one way we can have our cake and develop it too.
Okay, that's the end of this interview process. Thank you for being so patient, waiting through our closed session. You now have the choice of joining us in the audience, as it were, or watching us virtually, or just hearing from us tomorrow. You can take your name tags home, put them on the dining room table, or you can leave them there. So I'll now bring the matter back to the council for discussion and a recommendation to the council for one seat. This is an unexpired term ending on April 17th of 2025, which is open on the Rental Housing Committee, and two seats, terms running from January 1st, 24 through December 31st, 27, open on the Environmental Planning Commission. Per the selection process outlined in Council Policy K2, when voting, each council member shall vote for as many candidates as there are open seats on each body. If there's a tie vote, we will re-vote on the tied applicants, and the applicant with the highest number of votes wins. This process can be changed upon a majority vote of the council, and we can now discuss our recommendations for a member to the Rental Housing Committee or proceed directly to a vote by ballot. Vice Mayor.
I just have a question. I thought we were voting for one member and an alternate. Is that not right? No, just...
Apparently, my understanding, and people can clarify it, we're voting for one member. Then, depending on the outcome of that vote, for example, if you get it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that will be subsequent if that alternate position opens up. Okay. So now we're open to comments, if council members want to make comments, or you have, the city clerk has provided you with ballots. We could also just vote, but we may want to comment to begin with. Councilmember Matichak.
Thank you. I guess I just want to say a couple of things initially, and that's, I know you all know I watch a lot of committee and commission meetings. I think everybody should watch some. Besides the fact that you learn a lot, you also see how the folks we've appointed contribute to the bodies that they're on. And I guess kind of how I think about this is, are they coming prepared? Do they know something about the topic to begin with? Because when they don't, it does require a lot of staff support to help them, as well as their colleagues have to help them. And it really doesn't serve them well. And it certainly makes the meetings longer. And so I am looking for folks who already know something about the topic, so they can kind of hit the ground running. The other thing that's really important to me is how they interact with their colleagues. Can they work well with them? Are they collaborative? Are they respectful? And we're, a team here. We're a team on the council. The individual commissions are teams, and you really need to work together in order to accomplish something. So those are kind of the things I'm thinking about as I think about the folks who applied for these roles. Thanks.
So do we have more comments? Councilmember Ramos.
In a broad perspective we interviewed a number of people for the RHC and EPC. One thing I do want to emphasize as we do this process is some people have to apply multiple times to get onto the boards or commissions that they are. If a candidate doesn't get it this time, there's always next time. There's no shame in that. It didn't mean that there was something faulty with the appointee. I really wanted to emphasize that because I know that there have been some candidates, some appointment candidates, I guess, who have expressed disappointment with applying to a number of positions and not getting them. And sometimes these positions are just incredibly competitive. I'm very sympathetic. It's just what we have. It's just our reality that we want to pick the best candidates for these positions, and sometimes there are many very good candidates, but we have to pick the best one. In regards directly to the RHC, I have personal privilege to watch it very frequently, and I do understand Councilmember Matichek's concern with the preparedness of certain members. With that being said, I do feel that one of our candidates, also by being already technically on the board as an as an alternate, I feel that that particular candidate, which I guess Alex Brown, is incredibly prepared for that by being on the alternate. And the RHC is very interesting in its structure, and it's very strange that it happened this way, and I don't think it was like a planned thing. It just happened, where the alternate has full range of being in the discussion with the other members. And I think that's an extraordinary thing, and it prepares them well to be ready for a full seat. And it's why in the past when we had alternates, for example, Julian Pardo Dizella initially was an alternate. When Tom Means resigned from his committee, Julian ended up serving that seat. When Vanessa Honey resigned from her commission, resigned from the committee, the alternate at the time, Nicole Haynes-Livesay, ended up serving in that seat. I am inclined to follow that pattern. If the rest of the council feels that way, then there's also that look of the rest of the candidates. And I am sensitive to the what's missing in the RHC as it is. I actually have become very impressed with my conversations with Mr. Balch. It was a very different, his initial interview that we had a few months in the last time he applied versus now. I'm very sensitive that there are some landlords that feel they aren't represented on that board. But however, as we're doing this one step and another, my inclination right now is to appoint Alex Brown to that full seat, and if that opens up, then there's another conversation there.
So, Councilmember Kamei.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Before we vote, I just want to thank all the applicants who, some are still here and some have left, but they are volunteering and taking their time and putting themselves out there. And I just want to say that I really appreciate and the quality of applicants we have in Mountain View. We always talk about how rich we are in terms of diversities of perspectives and backgrounds, and I feel that way again tonight. I think in terms of the things I'm thinking about, many of the attributes that Councilmember Matichek are things I think about, as well as I would say where people live, the kind of geographical locations. I want to make sure we're an at-large council, and it's important that I think we have a variety of commissioners from various parts of our cities and various parts of our communities, because some are seeing the rates of development at different speeds than others, and so that's also important. And I think in particular for EPC, kind of how are some of the applicants expressing some of the goals that council has discussed, whether that be multimodal, sustainability, environmental. I'm just thinking about that in terms of who's appointed. So just wanted to be brief and give my thanks and say if it's not this round, that I hope that people continue to apply. Thanks, Mayor.
Yes, and I'm going to say, just as mayor, I'm going to also allow, we're going to do the RHC vote first, and I'm going to allow for a few extra comments specifically on the EPC if council members want to make that. So you can make broad comments now. You can make RHC comments now, but you'll have another opportunity to go specifically into the EPC if you want to. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'd also like to thank everybody for applying. It's a lot of work to fill out these applications, and And clearly the applicants have done a lot of research about the topic that their committee, they're applying, the rental housing committee, what they do, and they care deeply. And I really appreciate that a great deal. I also think it's true that sometimes it takes several times to apply before you get appointed, and I know that's sort of unfortunate, but when we have so many good applicants, it is very competitive. So I'd just like to thank everybody and for stepping up.
So I'm going to make a couple comments as well. Thank you everybody for being so patient. This has been a longer night than I expected. And I also wanted to say that in terms of what I'm looking for first, in terms of what people are saying about applying, I just want to agree with people that applying multiple times is kind of the norm. I think many of the people who we've interviewed now have applied several times, and I did as well, and I say this every time now, but I did as well. I applied twice to the EPC and was never chosen. But kept on doing other things, mostly activist things, and then ran for council. And council member Margaret Abbott Koga rooted for me very much both times I applied for the EPC, but the rest of the council members didn't listen to her. So thank you. Oh, well, some of them listened to you, but not enough. Yeah, no embarrassment there. So I also wanted to say that what I look for, I really value people who have done their homework, and also who are frankly incumbents or alternates, because I think that's one of the ways to do your homework, to really know what you're talking about. And for both of these, the RHC and the EPC in particular, I think that more than some of our other committees and commissions, having that deep knowledge is really important. So with that, I think we're getting ready to vote, but Councilmember Matichak, you have a second comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with Councilmember Ramos about it's important to think about the makeup of who's on the committee or the commission. And for me, it is important to have somebody who represents the property owner, the landlord, as the full member on the RHC, so they get a vote. I will be supporting Mark. I feel like he had a lot of great things to say. I feel like he's very thoughtful and really understands the purpose of the CSFRA and is committed to supporting it. I feel like he's kind of a unique perspective that I appreciated, and I would encourage my colleagues to support him as the full member. Thanks.
So are there any other comments before we vote? I guess the one thing I would say is that depending on how this vote comes out, we will have the opportunity to, if it unfolds this way, if the alternate position opens up, then the applicants for the full position will have the opportunity to apply for that, as well as other applicants. So with that, we have ballots, and we can make out our ballots now for one position. Oh, and council members, you're supposed to be able to recess while we're counting votes if you want a short recess.
We ready? Councilmember Abikogo voted for Mark Belt. Councilmember Kamei voted for Alex Brown. Councilmember Matichek voted for Mark Belt. Councilmember Ramirez voted for Alex Brown. Councilmember Ramos voted for Alex Brown. Vice Mayor Showalter voted for Alex Brown. And Mayor Hicks voted for Alex Brown.
Okay, so it looks like Alex Brown will join the RHC as a full member, and we will have an opening for the alternate that we'll interview for at a later date.
Yeah, you would need, we should repost it. I can't remember, Wanda, did we say how many openings we had on the RHC? We said one, yeah, so we should repost it.
Yeah, and my understanding, although we don't have legal counsel here, is that this is because of state law, not because we don't know how to do things efficiently.
Right, when it's called the Maddie Act, and when a seat is vacated, then we have to post a notice of vacancy.
Yes. So that's the direction this will be going in. Thank you, everyone, very much. Next, we can discuss our recommendations for 2 members to the EPC, if people have particular comments on the EPC. Councilmember Ramos.
All right. As Councilmember Ramirez likes to say, I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid. So I am inclined to reappoint the incumbent. I think he has done enough to be considered for that reappointment and move forward. And then that leaves 1 seat left, and it's tragic to me because I actually like both of the other candidates a great deal, and I have but it's in very different ways, and that's what makes it actually so difficult for me. I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe how the strengths of Mr. Donahue. I think when I had this conversation with him, I was like, "You're very Lisa-like," and I don't mean that in a bad way. I actually mean that with the greatest respect, because there's so much I admire about that. The dedication, the great attention to detail, the ability to listen and consider and filter it through a correct process that is easy for many people to understand. I have incredible respect for that. I always have an incredible respect for a fellow wonk. Especially ones who look at some almost very things that many people consider boring, like how agendas are presented and the different ways some jurisdictions have their agendas and some jurisdictions don't have their agendas. I find it fascinating, and his service with the first with the Parks and Rec Commission and then downtown, and then with the library board, which was when I met him for the first time. And we also wonked out on agendas back then. And his service on the Airport Land Use Commission for several years. He mentioned he was the alternate for Kansan Chu. And I was just like, wow, that's a while back. And so I think he'd be an incredible addition to the EPC. And then we have Celia Paymer. Ms. Paymer is the kind of person that I feel like if she wanted to do something, there is nothing that will keep her from it. And there's a passion and a fire that I have It's like a kindred heart to me. And that's why I struggle between the two of them in selecting the things. We have very, I actually don't know who I'm going to vote between the two of Mr. Donahue and Ms. Paymer. I know I'm going to vote to reappoint Alex Nunez, but I don't know between the two until probably it comes time. It's like, time to turn in your ballot, and that's probably when I'll make that decision. But that's my thought process. It's so hard. I have so much admiration for you two. But thank you.
Do we have additional council comments? Councilmember Matichak.
Thank you. So I do know Paul pretty well since we serve on the Santa Clara County Airport Land Use Commission together. And I have a great deal of respect for him. He does do his homework. He asks really good questions, very thoughtful when it comes to making a decision. And I appreciate that he has so much experience on other committees and commissions. He knows how to be a good, advisory body member, and he can help others. And because the Airport Land Use Commission deals with land use, he's got quite a number of years' experience of land use. So while I thought we had great options here, I definitely will be supporting Mr. Donahue. Thank you.
Councilmember Abikoga.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to, first of all, thank all the applicants for applying. It's always good to see that we have interest, and it's an important job, and I appreciate folks' willingness to step up and put in the time and commitment to do the job. I just wanted to also voice my support for Paul Donahue. I've known him for a long time. I'm trying to remember which commissions I have say in appointing him to. He's done so much, and he's applied for EPC before, and I think this is his time. And I do think that I'm looking frankly for folks who can work with others. And I'll just be frank that I've watched some meetings and heard from people who have shared some of the challenges with personalities. And, that's what I pride ourselves here on the council is we may be very different in some of our opinions on issues at times. A lot of times we agree, but, we've always had, I think, most of the time had the ability to treat business as business, take a vote, and move on and not make it personal. And I am concerned that that's not always happening. And so I'm looking for folks who are able to frankly work with other people. And I think Paul is a great example of that. Thanks.
Additional comments? Well, I'll just say it's going to be a hard vote for me, too, because I think we have exceptionally qualified candidates. I do follow a principle of voting for incumbents unless they've done something really terrible, which I don't think this incumbent has. And he also gave good answers during the interview. And so I think both Paul Donahue and Celia Paymer gave excellent answers as well. I think there's an argument for voting for somebody with a lot of experience, but also an argument for opening it up to somebody who hasn't had an opportunity in the past when they do a great job of interviewing and have been an activist. So with that, if there are no further comments, are there further comments? Okay. If there are no further comments, last call, we can vote.
Councilmember Abe-Koga voted for Paul Donahue and Celia Paymer. Councilmember Kamei voted for Alex Nunez and Celia Paymer. Councilmember Matichak voted for Paul Donahue. Councilmember Ramirez voted for Alex Nunez and Celia Paymer. Councilmember Ramos voted for Paul Donahue and Alex Nunez. Vice Mayor Showalter voted for Paul Donahue and Alex Nunez. And Mayor Hicks voted for Alex Nunez and Celia Paymer. So we have Alex with 5 and revote the 2. Tie.
Clear, we now vote for one person.
Correct. Out of Paul and Celia. Okay. Councilmember Abe-Koga voted for Paul Donahue. Councilmember Kamei voted for Celia Paymer. Councilmember Matichak voted for Paul Donahue. Councilmember Ramirez voted for Celia Paymer. Councilmember Ramos voted for Paul Donahue. Vice Mayor Showalter voted for Paul Donahue. And Mayor Hicks voted for Celia Paymer, which leaves Paul Donahue as the winning candidate.
Okay, well, that was very close. Yeah, great candidates this time, and for anyone who did, congratulations to both of you. We're now that Paul Donahue will be the next EPC member. We are now on item 5 on our agenda, which is adjournment. The next City Council meeting will be held on October 24th of 2023, and this meeting is adjourned at 8:34.